We are live. We'll give it just a moment for everybody to catch up and get on all of the other feeds this morning. It's great to be with you. What a beautiful Monday morning here in Huntsville, Utah, up above the Ogden Valley, a beautiful lake, Pine View. Water's down a little bit. We're struggling with a drought, but had the experience Saturday go out and enjoy the water with our daughter and son-in-law. What a wonderful Saturday we spent out here and looking out over the mountains as we're sitting on the lake. What a beautiful day. Well, it's great for everybody. Great for me to be here with everyone. We're going to take on a really tender topic this morning. For those who are building businesses and creating wealth, it's important that we begin to understand some basic principles because the accumulation of wealth will reveal, not create, will reveal some underlying characteristics in our self-esteem that we'll want to be really aware of. We've talked about creating dreams and the difference between having the money and beginning to create or purchase something versus the phase of creation, which is actually creating the money that will allow us to create that physical thing, if it's a physical thing like a car or a cabin or whatever it might be, new furniture for the living room. Whatever that might be, we have those two phases, the creation of the money and then the creation of the item. And I mentioned that one of the great risks in an earlier broadcast is that as we start to generate the money, we're so tied to the vision that the risk is that we might prematurely try to experience that event by getting creative financing. Now, there are great reasons to finance things. Sometimes cars are business assets, and you're looking at the use of money, the depreciation of the asset. There's lots of things to be taken into consideration with your accountant. But we want to be careful not to use all of those as excuses to prematurely live our dreams. As much as possible, especially with toys, we'll want to be able to pay for those toys in cash. That also brings in another dangerous consideration, and that is that we might compromise value to get it quicker because we are a little impulsive, are we not? And it's a little harder to wait for the right thing. And sometimes we might want to rent one until we can afford to buy the right one. This weekend, we were sitting in our favorite cove on Pine View, and Ramona and our daughter and her 4 children and Marty, our Labradoodle, were all in the water playing. It was a great thing. And Chris and I were sitting in the boat just talking. We're talking about boats. He's very interested in boats. He's my co-captain. He's just wonderful to have on board. He knows how everything works and can help me make it happen. And we were talking about boats and what's happening in the market with boats right now, that they're hard to buy. So values are going up. And the boat I bought 2 years ago, I could sell for more than I paid for it. Isn't that insanity? But this was the key to the conversation. And it was around, isn't it great to have good equipment? Good equipment. Because you're thinking about funding this dream to sit in something you know is going to work. And it's going to work for a long time and last for a long time. Before we bought this boat, we had a new one we bought in 2008. That was a great time to buy one because boats were not selling. The economy was falling apart. And we bought this at a great price. But we bought a really nice Malibu boat, high quality. We had it as a family for 12 years. 12 years. That's an incredible length of time for a boat. And at the end of 12 years, it still looked brand new because it was a high quality boat and we wanted to keep it looking that way. So after every use, it was wiped down with vinegar and water, make the coat look really beautiful, vacuumed inside, everything dried out appropriately. When we sold the boat, I could, with great confidence, sell it to the person because nothing had ever broken except for one indicator on a pump for one of the ballasts that got replaced. And it was just a great boat to own. It just wasn't expensive to take care of. Was it more expensive to purchase? Yes. But at the end, that boat was sold for very close to 65% of what I paid for it 12 years earlier. So when you're thinking about creating dreams, quality is a really key component. And sometimes quality comes with brands. There are brands like a Malibu or I won't go down the list, I'll get in trouble. If I left out your boat, Mastercraft, are we okay if I go there too? To buy it, when you're going to buy a boat, to buy a boat that is a high quality one, because 12 years into most boats, they're falling apart. It's nice to have great equipment because when you're on the lake, you want everything to function. You want it to be safe. You want it to last. You want it to be beautiful 5 years after you purchase it, as beautiful as it was the day you bought it. So quality is a consideration in this. So not only do we sometimes get into debt prematurely to own it, we can't compromise on quality. And I would say don't compromise on quality because that'll end up costing you a lot more over time, although you have this immediate opportunity. Now, there are a lot of wonderful boats out there. Paul has one that he bought that is built to wake surf and surf. It makes a great wake, and it's designed to have an affordable boat that is really well built. And there's some research that went into that for him to identify that's one I can afford and I can pay for it. That's the kind of thing you want to do when we're looking at these dreams. Now, that isn't the topic for the day. The topic for the day is what starts happening to our habits of thinking, particularly in the dialogue we have about ourself as we begin to become increasingly successful in our businesses. Dr. Hartman, I still remember the day I read this. Robert Hartman, PhD, mathematics, philosophy, a Juris Doctorate, the creator of axiological mathematics, the father of it, actually, which we consider to be one of the greatest breakthroughs in science since the discovery of, or at least the definition of gravity. I mean, this is a huge breakthrough in terms of intrinsic, extrinsic, systemic thought and how they relate to each other. And it allows us to measure how someone thinks, not their emotions, not their personality, the thoughts subconsciously that are driving all of those things. So we can get to the headwaters and help somebody work through it. He was an amazing individual, died way before he should have, very early age, 1972-ish. Yeah, incredible scientist, incredible man. Came from Germany, lived through the Third Reich situation in Germany. Incredible person. And some of his writings outside of the mathematics for the assessment are extremely powerful. I still remember the first time I read The Objective. He was summarizing pages of analysis, and he summarized the whole purpose of self-improvement with these words. The objective of self-improvement, of us improving, is to be or become real and genuine and authentic. I'll dissect those for you in just a moment. But then he went on to say, without the need, and this is what starts to show up as success begins to build in our lives, the need to impress, pretend, feel shame, or fear. And I'll dissect those for you. Then he went on to say, this is the most difficult task in our mortal existence. Wow. So maybe this is where we need to focus. This is the most difficult task in our mortal existence and the highest level of maturity, which means to ripen, to mature, to become all that we're meant to be. Could it be that simple? Think about everything that you read and study. First is to be real, which is the root word of relationship. To be able to have a comfortable conversation with another human being, to truly step into their world and make it about them without it needing to be about us. How are we sounding? Will they have credit? Do I have enough credibility? Um, all the fears around, am I enough? Am I good enough? Am I smart enough? All that dialogue that can show up, to be able to divorce all of that dialogue and truly show up for another person. That's the number one of the three critical objectives of self improvement. So, if we're having challenges connecting with people, then that's a place we're going to want to take a look and study intrinsic validation. What are the steps of stepping into someone's world? How can I become a better listener? How can I not make it about me? Because you'll see how those four tethers that tie us down and keep us from success start creeping up because of that dialogue, keeping us from being real. Genuine. Root word genus, same word as genius. To be genuine is to bring our gifts, our talents fully to the service of another person. Truly. Otherwise, we rob them and us of our own gifting. Why would we do that? Let's bless them, which blesses us by bringing our gifts and talents to their service. Well, I'm not sure. Great job. Well, yeah, could have done better. All that false humility that somehow has been infused in us, that somehow that's being righteous, that's being good, to be self deprecating. That's crap. Because when we're in that space, we're robbing others and ourselves of our gifts. So that dialogue, driving those four tethers we'll talk about in a moment, start creeping in. And the third one is authentic, anthos hectic, to be our true self. In the Habit Finder assessment, there's a horizontal bar in the middle is green. That's a balanced measurement. And we're the green. We are the green. Our authentic self is the green in each one of those measurements. But we all have habits that take us out of our greenhood. The book I wrote, The Observer's Chair, off the observer's chair, and being subject to, even imprisoned by, as Og Mandino wrote, our unhealthy habits of thinking. So we want to be real, be able to have relationships comfortably, be able to bring all of our gifting to the service of others and be authentic, to be our true self, not our habits of thinking. They're just habits. But sometimes we surrender to them and they imprison us. They just imprison us. So if we're struggling with those three, let's take a look at some of the contributors, the evidence that can help us see it more clearly. And the first one is impress. Now, we've all gone through this. If we get something really cool, don't we want people to see it? Of course we do. Do we sometimes get things to impress people? Of course we do. Let's not beat ourselves up. Let's just be aware of how this is playing in our lives in terms of our own worth, fed by that dialogue that makes us feel less than, or not enough, or false humility. And all of a sudden we're lashing back with impress. That's the overcompensation for that dialogue. So if we find ourselves trying to impress someone, hoping they see it, or we somehow subtly, it's my old Rolex story that you all have heard. I used to wear one and I wore it kind of like this, did you see it? It's coming back. I wore it for it to be seen. I'd like to tell you if I ever got another Rolex, it would be because of the quality of the construction of that watch. It's an amazing timepiece. There's a reason why it costs so much. And that's not so they could write Rolex on it. It's what's behind that, inside of it, the components. And often the gold or the silver or the platinum or the diamonds, whatever might else be on that particular watch. But sometimes we don't own it because of its quality. We own it because of the prestige. We want to be seen wearing it. Why? Why do we need that? Let's go take a look at our dialogue. And if you haven't taken a habit finder assessment, go take it, habitfinder.com. It's really simple. And the third section down is myself. Take a look at that dialogue and go, oh my goodness, I'm putting conditions on my worth. Why? I'm questioning my ability or my character or the value of my contribution. Am I buying these things and wearing them or showing them or driving them or living in them so people can think that I'm more than I think I am myself? This isn't anti-things. I love beautiful homes, beautiful cars, wonderful artwork. But the question is, do we get those things because they speak to us, they inspire us, they encourage us to be a better person, an outside object that reminds us of the kind of person we want to be, and we're striving to become that person, versus using the object to make us feel better about ourselves without paying the price to improve ourselves. Everybody got that? We're using it to prop up our lack of esteem, so we will want to impress people. This is a dangerous one. I struggle with it. Anybody else struggle with this? Yeah. I sometimes wonder, am I sharing something so people will think something? Am I trying to impress them? I have to be very careful with this one. I shared with you a couple of weeks ago, I was looking at a car to buy, and I didn't buy it because Ramon and I had a real honest conversation about pride, and was I buying it to be seen in it, or buying it because of what it did to me? And it was a combination, but there was enough pride in it to choose not to buy it. I needed to do something to me. If I needed that to be okay with me, then I need to go inside here and do some work. Someday I may buy that car, but it won't be because I need it inside to be okay. Can you feel that difference? That's what impress does. We're impressing to make up for the deficit we have in our own dialogue about ourselves. The second tether is pretend. That's when we try to act like things are bigger or better than they are. Ever been here before? I have. This is a tough one, especially if you're working with highly successful people. Many of you have businesses where there are people that work with you and people that you work with, your mentorship in a business, for an example. And some of them are so wildly successful that when you get into a group, do you ever need to, as one person said, don't ever present anything to that company at a meeting, because they all spent the last money they had on their credit card to buy new clothes so everybody would think they're successful. Could you feel that? That's pretending things are better than they are because I'm feeling what? Less than. I'm trying to prop up my own esteem so I feel like I'm worthy to be there, worthy to participate. I need to do that, so I feel that. If that's happening, then I need to go inside and do a little bit of work, right? Some work on me, learning how to intrinsically validate and use my mind constructively and stay present in the now and embrace structure and take care of this dialogue so that I don't need to impress anyone. I can just be authentic, my true self, and have that be enough. The third tether is really dangerous, shame. Now, when we feel guilty, we feel bad about what we've done. When we start to feel shame, we feel bad about who we are. And shame comes from the root word sham, which is a covering, like a pillow sham. It's like putting a wet blanket on our flame. Ogmandino writes about this in scroll number 4, that inside me burns a flame, passed down from generations uncounted, and its heat is a constant irritation to my spirit to be better than I am. I will proclaim my uniqueness. I will fan these flames of dissatisfaction and proclaim my uniqueness to the world. That's a healthy thing, to take your uniqueness and put that on display. But that sham, that shame, that wet blanket can sometimes just about extinguish your flame. It's time to remove that, because you can't be real, connect with people, and give them the gift of feeling understood, being genuine, and bringing your natural gifting, which you have much of, and to be your true self. You're the one with the flame. That's the real you. But shame sometimes starts to dampen that flame. And the last tether is fear. False evidence appearing real. This isn't a rattlesnake, is it? It's ready to strike, or being attacked by a bear. Many of you saw that video recently of that mother who bear was on the brick fence by the pool and the dogs were barking at it, and she ran out to save the dogs and pushed this giant black bear off the fence. That's a different kind of fear. That's imminent fear. This is false evidence that appears real. This is when, for an example, we wanted to turn out this way and it didn't. And so our body goes into a defense mechanism to protect the expectation. Surge of cortisol to speed up metabolism and healing wounds, because it feels like we're being attacked. Our amygdala, our fight or flight center, gets activated and starts shutting down all the energy-rich parts of our brain so that we can flee or fight with great energy. This kind of fear is so devastating. 77% of our thoughts negative. For entrepreneurs, the risk is even higher because your thoughts are more obsessive and more visual. We want to be hyper vigilant, that we're managing that gift constructively to get inspired ideas that ignite passion and drive action, and not destructive thoughts that drive cortisol and activation of our amygdala. That's the primary source of fear. We start to almost get paranoid. I hate to use that word, that's a diagnosis, but we worry endlessly. We're waiting for the next shoe to drop. It's going to fall apart eventually. So we kind of live in like this. That's a dangerous kind of fear. When we have faith in our ability, which comes from a sense of accomplishment, and confidence, which comes from identifying goals and accomplishing them, and accomplishing the next one, accomplishing the next one, ever increasing levels of confidence, we have ever less fear. How does that work? Because we know if what we're doing now falls apart, we'll do something else. We know that we have the capacity, the gifting, the talents, because we can connect with people. We've got gifting that we're fully maximizing. If this has a problem, we'll do something different, but we'll always be able to do something. So we have no more fear. What would it be like to have no more fear? To just be okay. Real, genuine, authentic. Without the need to impress and pretend and feel shame and fear. Starting to see why this is the most difficult task in our mortal existence? What a profound statement from Dr. Robert Hartman. It's also the highest level of maturity. As we gain greater levels of success, let us gain greater levels of wisdom, of awareness about what's motivating us to buy things. Why are we buying them? We're trying to fill a hole in our soul. We're trying to impress, or we're trying to pretend. We're feeling shame and trying to somehow salve that wound. Let's be wise. Let's be wise. Wonderful things. It's wonderful to have great equipment. It's wonderful to drive in something that inspires you to be an even better person. It's wonderful to live in a beautiful home. It's even more wonderful when every weekend you're home, there's grandkids here sharing it, being a part of it, enjoying it. My brother came to live with us for a couple of weeks. Last night I saw him out on the back deck, just sitting there having his dinner and looking out over the lake, peaceful, knowing that he's loved. There's anything better than that. Watching Marty with her little life jacket swimming by the side of grandson Milo, way, way away from the boat, and getting distracted by the birds that were landing on the water, the ducks, and wanting to go chase them. She was just having a blast swimming. Watching a daughter surfing with her young daughter on the board with her. It brought me to tears. That's why we have things, to create those kinds of moments, not to impress or pretend. So I hope that's okay this morning. That's what's been on my mind over the weekend. Let us stay focused. Let us know this is a journey. And let's make wise decisions as we're going through, and let us become increasingly aware of this toxic dialogue, because it will cause us to do things that will harm us. We don't want to do that. Have a great week, everyone. Blessings to you. Take this on, a new purpose, a new reason for self-improvement. Be real, genuine, and authentic. Blessings, everyone.